The Odyssey is a 2026 epic action fantasy film written and directed by Christopher Nolan, who produced it with his wife Emma Thomas. An adaptation of Homer's ancient Greek epic poem The Odyssey, it stars an ensemble cast including Matt Damon, Tom Holland, Anne Hathaway, Robert Pattinson, Lupita Nyong'o, Zendaya, and Charlize Theron. In the film Odysseus, Damon, the Greek king of Ithaca, undergoes a long and perilous journey home after the Trojan War and encounters mythical beings as he. After the meal, Odysseus remains inside the palace, still hiding his true identity. He has finally returned to Ithaca after years of war, suffering, and wandering, but he cannot simply reveal himself. The palace is filled with suitors who have taken control of his home and are competing for Penelope's hand. Among them, Antinous is the most arrogant and aggressive. The tension rises when Antinous attacks Odysseus. The disguised king is forced to face the man who has been disrespecting his household and taking advantage of his absence. Before the confrontation can go any further, Telemachus intervenes. He stands beside the mysterious stranger, unaware that the man he is protecting is actually his own father. But the most important confrontation is not a physical fight. It is the moment Odysseus finally decides to tell Penelope the truth about his past. Still disguised, Odysseus speaks with his wife and confesses the guilt he has carried for years. During the sacking of Troy, he says, he violated Zeus's law. In the violence and destruction of the city, he also desecrated a statue of Athena after killing her priestess. However, Odysseus later came to understand that the woman connected to that event was not simply an ordinary priestess. Athena had appeared through visions and had been watching the consequences of his actions. The realization has haunted Odysseus because he understands that his choices were not without consequences. He also reveals another shocking truth. The mysterious sea people, who have become the subject of stories and rumors, were not some unknown warriors from across the ocean. Odysseus understands that the destruction caused by the Greek armies went far beyond Troy. The violence helped trigger the collapse of the Bronze Age, leaving civilizations destroyed and entire societies changed. For the first time, Odysseus stops trying to defend himself. He does not claim that war made him do these things, and he does not blame anyone else. Instead, he accepts responsibility and asks Penelope to forgive him. Then something unexpected happens. Athena appears before Odysseus. The goddess approaches him and gently clasps his hand. Her appearance feels like a final reminder of everything that has happened between them. Odysseus has spent years fighting enemies, surviving impossible journeys, and trying to return home. Yet his greatest battle has always been against his own guilt. Penelope then makes an announcement that changes everything. She declares that she is ready to remarry. The suitors are told to return at dawn for one final challenge. Penelope brings out Odysseus's famous bow and announces that she will marry the man who can string it and shoot an arrow through a row of axe heads. The suitors are confident they can win. One by one, they try. One by one, they fail. No one realizes this moment will change Ithaca forever. The stranger holds the weapon with confidence, preparing to show everyone who he is. The next morning, the hall of Ithaca is filled with tension. Penelope stands before the suitors and repeats the challenge that will decide her future. Whoever can string Odysseus's bow and send an arrow through a row of axe heads will win her hand in marriage. The suitors are confident. For years, they have believed Odysseus is dead, and they have treated his palace as if it belongs to them. They have eaten his food, demanded Penelope choose one of them, and mocked the idea that Odysseus could ever return. Now they have a chance to prove themselves. The first suitor takes the bow. He grips it tightly and tries to bend it into position. But the bow barely moves. He struggles harder, his face turning red from the effort. After several attempts, he gives up. Another suitor steps forward. He believes the first man lacked strength. He takes the bow and tries himself. Once again, the result is the same. The weapon refuses to bend. One after another, the men attempt the task. None succeeds. Penelope watches quietly. She knows this bow well. It belonged to her husband, and she remembers the strength and skill he possessed. The challenge is not about choosing another husband. It is also a test connected to the man she has been waiting for. Telemachus watches the competition closely. Something about the mysterious stranger in the room has been bothering him. The man's behavior, his confidence, and the way he speaks seem strangely familiar. Eventually, the suitors become frustrated. They begin to realize that the challenge may be impossible for them. Then the disguised stranger steps forward. The hall becomes quiet. He walks toward the bow without showing fear. The suitors look at him with disbelief. To them, he is only an unknown traveler who has been allowed to remain in their presence. One of them mocks him, suggesting that if the strongest man in Ithaca could not string the bow, there is no chance for him. The stranger says nothing. He reaches down and picks up Odysseus's bow. He examines it carefully, as though he knows exactly how it works. His hands move naturally over the weapon, and there is no hesitation. Penelope watches him. For a moment, her expression changes. Could this man really be the husband she has waited years to see again? The stranger places the bow into position. Then, with ease, he strings it. The suitors stare in shock. The impossible has just happened. But he is not finished. He takes an arrow and prepares to complete Penelope's challenge. The row of axe heads stands ahead, creating a path for the arrow. Everyone watches. Telemachus is focused on the stranger. He begins to suspect the truth. Odysseus draws the bowstring back. The weapon is ready. In a single moment, the disguise, the years of waiting, and the power of the suitors are about to collapse. The arrow is placed against the string. Odysseus takes aim. Then he releases it. The arrow flies through the row of axe heads with perfect accuracy. It passes through every opening and strikes the final target, leaving the entire hall silent. The suitors stare at the stranger, unable to understand how an unknown man could accomplish what none of them could even begin to do. Penelope watches him. Her heart seems to recognize something that her eyes cannot accept. The way he holds the bow, the confidence in his movements, and the power behind the shot remind her of the husband she has waited for years. There is no longer any R. He reveals that he is Odysseus, the true king of Ithaca. This announcement changes the atmosphere instantly. The men who had been laughing and competing for Penelope's hand suddenly realize that the man they believed was dead has returned. They have been eating his food, occupying his home, and planning to take his wife while he was away. Now their greatest fear is standing in front of him. Antinous is shocked. He realizes that the situation has completely turned against him and the other suitors. The confidence they had moments earlier disappears. Telemachus understands the truth. The stranger he had defended is not a stranger. He is his father, Odysseus. Telemachus has lived without knowing if his father would return. Now the man he has heard stories about is standing before him. But there is no time for an emotional reunion. The suitors begin preparing for a fight. Odysseus has returned home, but the palace is still filled with enemies. The first attack comes quickly. The hall erupts into chaos as the suitors realize they must fight for their lives. Odysseus moves with the skill of a warrior who has survived many battles. He has spent years traveling across lands and seas, and now that experience is being used inside his own palace. Telemachus refuses to stand back. He takes up weapons and joins his father. Father and son fight side by side. The sight is powerful because Odysseus is no longer fighting alone. For years, he has been separated from his family, but now Telemachus is beside him, helping him reclaim the home that was taken in his absence. Penelope watches as the battle spreads across the hall. The suitors who once believed themselves untouchable are now trapped. Antinous tries to resist. He knows that if Odysseus survives, everything he planned will disappear. He has no intention of surrendering without a fight. But Odysseus is determined. He has returned to Ithaca not simply to take revenge, but to end the threat that has been consuming his household. The battle grows more violent as the remaining suitors continue challenging Odysseus and Telemachus inside the palace hall. Yet the balance of power is changing. The king has finally returned home. His brave son now stands beside him. And the men who believed they had won Ithaca are now desperately fighting to survive. For the first time, the palace belongs to Odysseus again, but the battle is only beginning now. The battle inside the palace becomes more intense as Odysseus and Telemachus fight together against the suitors. Just moments earlier, these men had been celebrating and believing that Ithaca was already theirs. Now they are fighting for their lives. Odysseus moves through the hall with the confidence of a warrior who has survived countless battles. His return has completely changed the situation. The suitors are no longer dealing with a helpless traveler. They are facing the king whose home they have occupied for years. Telemachus fights beside his father, refusing to back away. This is the first time they truly stand together as warriors. Odysseus has spent most of his son's life away from Ithaca, so seeing Telemachus fighting beside him carries enormous meaning. The suitors try to organize themselves and push back. But they are frightened. They had never expected Odysseus to return. Antinous is especially desperate. He knows that if Odysseus survives, his dream of marrying Penelope and controlling Ithaca is finished. He tries to challenge Odysseus and refuses to accept that everything has been taken away from him. Odysseus does not hesitate. The fight between the two sides spreads through the palace. Weapons crash against each other as the suitors attempt to escape the consequences of their actions. Some continue attacking, hoping they can somehow overpower Odysseus and his allies. But the advantage remains with the returning king. Telemachus proves that he is no longer the inexperienced young man who once lived without his father. He has grown into someone capable of standing beside Odysseus. Every move he makes shows that he is ready to protect his family and the future of Ithaca. Penelope remains nearby, watching the battle unfold. For years, she has been forced to live with uncertainty. She never knew whether Odysseus was alive, and she had been surrounded by men demanding that she choose a new husband. Now the truth has finally been revealed. Her husband is alive. Her son is fighting beside him. And the men who invaded their home are finally being confronted. The battle continues until the confidence of the suitors begins to disappear. They realize they cannot simply defeat Odysseus through numbers. His experience gives him an advantage they cannot overcome. Antinous refuses to surrender. He continues fighting because he knows there will be no future for him if Odysseus takes control again. His anger turns into desperation, and he makes one final attempt to challenge the man whose throne he tried to steal. Odysseus faces him directly. Their confrontation becomes one of the most important moments of the battle. Antinous represents everything Odysseus has returned to destroy: greed, arrogance, and the abuse of his household during his absence. Telemachus. The final confrontation between Odysseus and Antinous is about to begin, while the remaining suitors struggle to survive the consequences of everything they have done. Odysseus and Antinous finally face each other inside the palace. The tension between them is stronger than ever. Antinous knows that Odysseus has returned to reclaim everything that was taken from him, while Odysseus knows that Antinous represents the men who invaded his home and tried to take his wife. Antinous attacks first, hoping to catch Odysseus off guard. But Odysseus is prepared. After years of war and dangerous journeys, he has become an experienced fighter. He avoids the attack and strikes back with determination. Telemachus watches his father closely. He knows this is not simply another battle. It is the final confrontation between Odysseus and the man who believed he could take control of Ithaca. Antinous refuses to surrender. He continues fighting even though the situation is clearly turning against him. His desperation makes him more dangerous, but Odysseus remains focused. He has already lost years of his life because of war. He will not allow Antinous to destroy what remains of his family. Telemachus then joins the fight again. Father and son move together, protecting one another as they face the remaining enemies. Their partnership shows how much Telemachus has changed. He is no longer simply the young man waiting for his father to return. He has become a warrior capable of standing beside him. The suitors begin realizing that their position is hopeless. They had once entered Odysseus's palace believing they could stay there forever. They thought his absence made him powerless. Now they understand that their greatest mistake was underestimating the man who survived the Trojan War and returned home after years of suffering. Antinous makes one final attempt to defeat Odysseus. But Odysseus overpowers him. Antinous is finally killed, ending the threat posed by the most aggressive of the suitors. The remaining men are terrified. Some continue resisting, while others realize that surrender is their only option. Odysseus looks across the hall. The battle has changed everything. His home, once controlled by the suitors, is finally back under his authority. Penelope is safe, and Telemachus has proven himself. Yet Odysseus does not celebrate. He knows that returning home has not erased his past. The memories of Troy, the deaths of his soldiers, and the destruction caused by the war will remain with him. For now, however, the immediate danger is over. The surviving suitors begin surrendering. Odysseus has won the battle, but his final decision about Ithaca is still ahead. With Antinous dead, the remaining suitors finally understand that they have lost. Their confidence disappears, and one after another, they stop fighting. The palace becomes quiet after the violence, but the consequences of everything that happened are still impossible to ignore. Odysseus stands inside the hall he once ruled. After years of war, wandering, and uncertainty, he has finally returned to Ithaca. His wife, Penelope, is safe, and his son Telemachus is standing beside him. For many people, this would be the perfect moment to celebrate. But Odysseus does not see it that way. He has changed during his long journey. The man who left Ithaca years earlier believed victory and glory were everything. Now he understands that every victory can come with a terrible price. The memories of Troy remain with him. He remembers the soldiers who followed him into battle and never returned. He remembers the destruction of the city and the choices that created consequences far beyond what he expected. He also remembers the guilt he confessed to Penelope. The suitors may have been defeated, but defeating them cannot erase the mistakes Odysseus made in the past. Telemachus watches his father carefully. For the first time, he has the opportunity to truly know the man he spent so many years waiting for. But Odysseus understands that Ithaca needs more than a returning warrior. It needs a future. The remaining suitors surrender, and the immediate threat is finally over. Odysseus could easily reclaim his throne and continue ruling exactly as before. Instead, he begins thinking about something different. He looks toward Telemachus. His son has fought beside him. He has shown courage, loyalty, and the ability to protect their home. Odysseus realizes that Telemachus is ready to take responsibility for Ithaca. The decision will change everything. Odysseus chooses to give his throne to his son. Telemachus is no longer simply the prince waiting for his father's return. He is now the future ruler of Ithaca. For Odysseus, stepping away from the throne is not a sign of weakness. It is his final act of responsibility. He has spent his life seeking victory, returning home, and trying to overcome every obstacle placed in his path. Now he wants something he could never achieve through another war. Peace. Penelope understands his decision. She has waited years for Odysseus to return, but she also understands that the man who has come back is not the same person who left. Together, Odysseus and Penelope prepare to leave Ithaca once again. This time, they are not leaving because they are being forced away. They are leaving by choice. Their son will remain behind to lead Ithaca into a new future, while Odysseus and Penelope prepare for one final journey across the sea. Odysseus has made his decision. After everything he has experienced, he no longer wants to hold on to the throne of Ithaca. Instead, he chooses to give the kingdom to Telemachus. For Telemachus, the moment is overwhelming. His entire life has been shaped by the absence of his father. He grew up hearing stories about Odysseus, wondering whether he would ever return. Now his father is standing in front of him, but instead of simply reclaiming the crown, Odysseus is trusting him with the future of Ithaca. Telemachus accepts the responsibility. Odysseus knows that his son must now create his own legacy. Ithaca needs a ruler who can look forward instead of remaining trapped in the wars and mistakes of the past. Penelope also understands what Odysseus has chosen. She has spent years waiting for her husband to come home. Yet when he finally returns, she realizes that their journey cannot simply return to the way life was before Troy. Too much has happened. Odysseus has changed. Penelope has changed. And the world around them has changed. Instead of remaining in Ithaca, Odysseus and Penelope decide to leave together. Their departure is not an escape from defeat. Odysseus has already won back his home, defeated the suitors, and restored his family. He is leaving because he believes peace is more important than power. The couple prepares for another journey across the sea. This time, there is no army following Odysseus. There is no war to win and no enemy city to conquer. There is only the open ocean and an uncertain future. Before leaving, Odysseus looks back toward Ithaca. The island represents everything he fought to recover. It also represents the life he once believed he had lost forever. Now he is willing to leave it behind. Telemachus remains in Ithaca as its new ruler. His father's decision gives him the chance to lead without living permanently in Odysseus's shadow. Odysseus and Penelope sail away together. Their destination is the Western world, where they hope to honor the soldiers who died during their long journey and the wars that shaped their lives. As the coastline of Ithaca slowly disappears behind them, Odysseus begins to understand the meaning of his journey. He spent years trying to get home. When he finally arrived, he discovered that home was not the answer to everything. Peace was. Penelope remains beside him as the ship moves farther west. Their journey is no longer about conquest or glory. It is about accepting the past, honoring those who were lost, and hoping that something better can grow from the ruins left behind. Odysseus knows his mistakes will always remain part of his story. But he also believes the future does not have to repeat them. The sea carries them toward a new beginning. Odysseus and Penelope continue sailing west, leaving Ithaca behind as they begin the final journey of their lives. For the first time in years, Odysseus is not traveling because he has been forced into another war or because he is trying to escape an enemy. He is traveling by choice, searching for peace and hoping to honor the people who died during the long years of conflict. The sea stretches endlessly around them. As the ship moves farther away from Ithaca, Odysseus looks back at everything that has happened. He remembers the Trojan War, the destruction of Troy, and the soldiers who followed him into battle. Many of those men never returned home. Their deaths remain part of his conscience. Odysseus also remembers the mistakes he made. He once believed that victory was worth almost any price. But after witnessing so much destruction, he understands that war can destroy more than cities. It can destroy families, civilizations, and the people who survive it. Penelope remains beside him. She has waited for Odysseus for years, endured uncertainty, and refused to completely give up hope. Now they are together again, but their future is uncertain. They are no longer returning to the life they once knew. Instead, they are moving toward something new. Behind them, Telemachus has taken responsibility for Ithaca. The throne now belongs to the next generation, giving the kingdom an opportunity to rebuild and move forward. Odysseus hopes that his son will create a better future than the one shaped by his father's wars. As the journey continues, Odysseus and Penelope think about the world that will come after them. Civilizations have fallen, but new ones can rise from the ruins. The Bronze Age has collapsed, yet humanity will continue. The couple understands that history will eventually move on. People may remember Odysseus as a legendary warrior, a king, and a man who survived impossible journeys. Stories will be told about his courage, intelligence, and return to Ithaca. But Odysseus also knows that legends rarely tell the entire truth. They may forget his mistakes. They may forget the guilt he carried. They may forget the terrible consequences of his decisions. Perhaps, with enough time, the world will remember only the hero. But Odysseus himself cannot forget.